Hi, everyone. This is a recording of the Trail Project Form Refresher Training Session for 2022. I am Steph Lagori, the NEPA Specialist for the North Country National Scenic Trail for the National Park Service. This year's training will be a little different than the previous year's training I've done. The Trail Project Form has not changed much from previous years, and the previous Trail Project Forms trainings that were recorded last year and the year before that are still available for viewing. I wanted to make this valuable for you, so I did not want to get too overly repetitive with information you've heard for the past 2 years. So if you want to go into a detailed overview that walks through filling out the form step by step, you can revisit these 2 videos from the past 2 years. I'd recommend the 2020 training if you want details and a background of the NPS's compliance program. And I'd recommend the 2021 training if you want to go back through the most recent step-by-step instructions for filling out the form. You can find those videos at the NCTA's YouTube site. That's right here at this link. The Trail Project Form also has a Find Help Here section at the very top. The video from last year's refresher training is embedded there, so you can watch it and refer to it while you're filling out the form step by step. All right, so here's the agenda for this recording. We will start out with some information on the status of the NPS compliance program for your awareness of where we stand and what progress has been made in the past 2 years. The form is almost exactly the same as last year with one minor update. So next on the agenda, I will show you that one small update on the Trail Project form for this year. Then we'll get into the main focus of this webinar, which will be going over some tips and tricks for creating project maps and how to upload those onto the form. I found I get a fair amount of questions about maps and how to upload them. So I hope I can answer some of those questions by going into more detail about that today. And then finally, we'll go over some dates and timelines for your understanding of what the immediate coming months will be like regarding the compliance program. So the next few slides, I'm going to give you an overview of the current status of the NPS compliance program and what kind of trends I've been seeing over the past 2 years. If you remember, the NPS compliance program was overhauled back in 2020. Since then, the NPS has completed some level of environmental compliance work on 24 North Country Trail projects. This does not include projects where the review was as simple as determining that no additional compliance work was needed. It does not include NEPA that was completed by another federal agency, and it does not include those projects that are still in progress right now. So this is just those that are completed and where at least some level of NEPA work was done by the National Park Service. The majority of these projects have included moving the NCT off roadwalk, about 42.66 miles of new trail. And I put new in quotes here because some of that was moving the trail onto already existing trails and trail systems. So it's not always a case of necessarily building new trail, but it is all new in the sense that it was previously roadwalk. And 18 of those trail miles were part of one single compliance effort for the new Arrowhead reroute in Itasca County, Minnesota. Compliance work was also completed on about 4.85 miles of rerouted trail where the NCT is already off of roadwalk, but it had to be rerouted for some other reason. There were also 21 punch-ins or boardwalk, 4 bridges, 3 new roadside gravel parking areas, and 2 new primitive trailside campsites that had some level of compliance effort completed by the Park Service. And not all of this is necessarily constructed yet. So these are just the miles and structures that have a compliance effort completed, but some of them are still ongoing in construction and some of them haven't started trail construction yet. But this is what compliance has been completed on. So as part of the NEPA process, it is important to identify what the purpose and need for a project is. Why is this needed for the North Country Trail and what is its purpose for the North Country Trail? So when I'm reviewing the primary purpose and needs for projects undergoing compliance reviews, these are some of the most common reasons that I see. We have safety. So for example, moving the trail off of a vehicular road is obviously going to be much safer to have our hikers walking on trail instead of next to the road. Improved access and accessibility. So for example, adding punch and down over wet grounds or adding in a new parking area that's closer to the trail. Better scenery and visitor experience is another common one. This almost always ties into moving the trail off roadwalk to better meet the visions and goals of a national scenic trail. And finally, just a few projects over the past 2 years have been because of a landowner request. So for example, the landowner asking for the trail to be moved elsewhere on their property for any number of reasons. These are, of course, all very valuable and necessary needs for projects, and they do work as a basis that helps shape the NEPA analysis. So you may also be wondering what NEPA and other compliance timelines have looked like in the past 2 years. As expected, NPS compliance timelines are highly, highly variable, depending on the project compliance needs, the deadlines, the location, the resources present, many factors. Over the past 2 years, there has been an overall average of 4.5 months between the start of an NPS compliance review to the start of when project work starts. The shortest NEPA review took only 2.5 weeks. This was a very simple project where the trail was moving onto another existing trail and there was no notable ground disturbance. The longest NEPA review was about 10 months. This project included an archaeological survey. There was a delay in collecting GIS data because of weather, and there was a change in the route in the middle of the review. But because this project was submitted well over a year before its desired project start, most of the NEPA and other compliance work was able to happen over the winter and the early spring, so that the compliance work was completed by this next summer trail season. And perhaps this is the most important slide, and I hope it impresses to you how important the work you are doing when you're submitting projects via the trail project form is. So 8 of the compliance projects have included trail construction measures beyond the standard education and awareness measures that either avoided or further reduced impacts to threatened and endangered species. So for example, if I ever talked about your chapter or mentioned to your chapter about tree cutting restrictions, this is under that. There have also been 6 completed archaeological surveys over the past 2 years for the avoidance or protection of cultural resources. Something awesome that some of you have done is included informative panels or education, either at trailheads or near above ground cultural resources, which helps to further reduce impacts by educating hikers and the public about the resources' importance and historic significance. Also, in regard to cultural resources, 8 projects have included responses from a state historic preservation office and or a tribe or tribes. So this is when I get some sort of notable response or comment from the state or a tribe about the potential impacts to a cultural resource. And 10 projects have included a consideration of the level of impact to wetlands or waterways that were in the project area, which we all know are vital and valuable natural and habitat areas. Really, none of this could have been done without your willingness to communicate about trail projects and your curiosity about and your desire for natural and cultural resource protection. I truly appreciate the efforts and dedication in submitting projects the past 2 years, and I think the work you are doing as part of this process is important to the North Country Trail's integrity and longevity. So thank you very much, and I am looking forward to working with you this year to continue this trend. All right, so now we'll get into the actual form. The form is exactly the same as last year, almost exactly the same. And you can watch those past recordings from the previous years I talked about that have the step-by-step overview. There is one minor new change for this year. I'm going to navigate to the form now so you can see it while I talk about it. So let me reshare my screen here. All right, so Here we have the trail project form. I hope this is sharing. Okay. And this year, you'll notice that there is an option right here to choose if your project submittal is new or updated. In most cases, you'll be submitting new projects that have not been submitted to the trail project form in previous years. A reminder that your chapter does not need every specific project detail when submitting, and projects that you have planned in the next 1 to 5 years should be considered for submittal. If you submitted the project previously, then the Park Service still has all the information and projects that your chapter submitted before, and I'm continuing to work through them based on their deadlines, timelines, and complexity. Once you submit a project, the communication for that project does continue outside of the trail project forum. So I do reach out to chapters and your RTCs to check in on project status. I'll ask questions if there's any gaps in information or if I need some clarity in projects that were already submitted. Please also continue to inform myself and your RTC if there are notable changes to projects that you formally submitted previously, so that we can continue to make the best possible effort to meet timelines and accommodate the potential compliance needs. This continuing communication is often about landowner approvals, landowner requests, or updates to a project's timeline or deadline. However, this year, I did want to provide a clear opportunity for you to communicate significant updates to a project that were submitted previously via the trail project form. I noticed that I was getting updated projects submitted last year anyway, but having this option makes it a bit clearer to me that it's an update to an already submitted project is your intent. For example, you might want to submit an update if a route has been significantly remapped, if you realize that additional punch-ins need to be included, or if there's now a hard deadline that wasn't there previously because of landowner requests or scheduling with work groups, things like that. But I want to impress that this is an opportunity and a method that you can use to communicate major updates, but it doesn't mean it's the only time you can tell us about updates. Once you submit a project, always feel free to reach out to me and your RTCs at any time about landowner approval updates or timeline updates or deadline updates, things like that. If you want to talk through project updates and you're unsure if you should resubmit your project as an update, give me a call or send me an email. We can talk it through and I'll let you know if an updated trail project form submittal might be helpful for communicating information. All right, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. One moment. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get into making maps and uploading them into the trail project form. The map section in the form is exactly the same as last year, but it's a section of the form I normally have to breeze through super quickly while I'm going through the entire form step by step in this training. So I hope I can focus on mapping since I get a fair amount of questions about what is an appropriate map and how do I upload it into the form. I'm just going to go through some options and examples, but it's certainly not comprehensive to the plethora of mapping apps and programs that could be used. I'm also going to keep it to options that are more simple, so none of these are especially complex mappers or overly featured maps. I wanted to keep it more basic so that they're ones that most people can do and have access to. But if there's something that you're using that I don't mention that's maybe more complex than I'm talking about today, please continue to do what you're doing. And before I get into making simple maps for the form, I wanted to briefly talk about the first point on this slide, which is using already existing maps or project information. Depending on the land manager you're dealing with, you might already have a project application that contains a map or location information in it. It's perfectly acceptable to not make a new map for the trail project form and instead just upload the already existing project application or map you may have created for a land manager. So I sometimes see this for Forest Service and DNRs. If you do not have an already existing map or project location information that you previously made for a land manager, then the trail project form does require a map upload. We're going to go through a few ways to make a simple project map and upload it into the form. I also have two other options at the bottom here that I sometimes see people using, ArcGIS and County Mappers. I'm not going to go into these two in detail since they're not accessible to everyone. You need a login for ArcGIS, and not every county has a mapping program. But if you are familiar with and you're using these, that's perfectly fine, and you can continue to do so. Here's the first example. It is a simple estimated drawing of your project. Your map does not have to be exact. It can be a drawing of the estimated route and that the trail will follow. For example, here I drew with my hand on a paper map, just an estimated route of the map where the punch-in estimated is going to be. I took a picture of it. I emailed the picture to myself so I could save it and upload it into the form. While this is acceptable for upload into the form, I'll let you know that this is the method most likely to have follow-up questions from me, but perfectly acceptable option. All right, drawing in Adobe PDF is also an option. Adobe Acrobat Reader is free to download at this link here. And let me reshare my screen, and I'm going to show you within Adobe how to use the drawing tools to make an estimated map. All right, so it did not pop up here because I've already clicked it, but when you first open up a map in Adobe, this one is one that I just downloaded from the Avenza maps on the NCTA. There might be a yellow banner that asks you to enable all features. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click enable all features if you see that. And then the drawing tools you will find under this comment option. So I'm going to click comment here, and you'll see all the drawing tools in the top bar here. I like using, there's this shapes, it's like a circle and a square. I like using connected lines for showing an estimated trail route. So I'm going to click on connected lines. Let's say I'm doing a reroute here in the Lowell State Game Area vicinity. And then I would just click the estimated area where this is obviously an example, where my new route is proposed, and then double click to complete my drawing. You can change the color of the line here. You can change how thick your line is here. You can play around with these options. Other things you can do within this shapes is a text call out, which I find useful. So if you wanted to denote where maybe punch-in is needed. Oops, not let me type. Oh, there we go. So let's say punch-in needed. And I can, adjust my arrow to show, generally where that punch-in is needed. I could also make a circle if I wanted to, denote a specific area. If I were to right click it under properties, I can change the fill colors. Say I wanted it to just be transparent, so I could say no color, and you can see a little better there. There's also the comments bubbles, of course, if you wanted to say a certain, like ground or something. Yeah, so lots of options here for drawing. And then when you're done, make sure to save it to somewhere on your computer. So for later for upload into the form. Next, we will go through using the NCTA's online mapper. In the NCTA's online mapper, you would want to click on this measure tool, which looks like a, the triangle tool, and then the measure or distance. And with this, you would simply be able to click, similar as we were doing in the Adobe, just one single click to create your estimated route, double clicking when completed. If you want to redo it, a single click will make it disappear, and you can go back and try to redo some sections. You could do one single click just to show a area where an amenity might be, like a campsite or a parking lot or something like that. You could create a line if it was just say punch in non-existing trail. The one thing about using the NCTA's mapper is that what you draw with the measured tool cannot be printed. But what I would do is screenshot your screen, save the screenshot for upload onto the form. And then you'll have the screenshot to upload of what you created with the measure tool. So that is another option. I'm going to reshare my screen here to show you another simple mapping option. This is Google Earth. I'm going to use the web map that's available here because it's more available to everyone and it doesn't involve downloading the desktop app. I've seen some people use the desktop app and that's perfectly fine as well if you're using that. So to create a very simple map in this Google Earth web map, you would use these tools down here. The route and location, it says draw a line or a shape. So again, a simple click along the way to show a very estimated location and route, and a double click when complete. If you have a Gmail or a Google account, you can actually save your project. You can create a project title. So we'll say test project, click save. I don't have a Google account on here, but it will save to your Google account. You can go back and edit it later, things like that. You can also do it under here, projects, create project, and it would create a project within your Google account. So that's it, very simple. They also have this, just to show one single location again, which might be good for like a campsite or a parking lot. And you might say test parking lot project or something, or, whatever it was called. So that is using Google Earth on the web, and that's earth.google.com/web. The measure tool is actually really similar as well. It kind of shows the same thing. And if you wanted to try and, the general distance. So as you're going along, you can see that. All right, and I have another one to show you, and this is using Gaia. Again, I'm going to use the online mapper because of its accessibility to everyone. You can click around with these waypoint, route, and area tools. If you're clicking to create a route, you can also mark waypoints along your route. Here they have kind of some shortcuts you can do on your keyboard, out and back, reverse route. But we don't need to, this can be really, really simple. So again, just a single click. Say, this isn't a good example because there's no stream here, but let's say there's a stream here that you're going to put a bridge over, and you think its general location is about here. You can actually double click and add it as a waypoint. So that waypoint could be, maybe you write in the notes is, waypoint denotes bridge area. And yeah, you can keep clicking along. So you see the little waypoint. And then again, double clicking to complete your route. You can rename, you can change the color of your route. You can also rename it. Again, we'll say test project. And save. And once you save it, you can print it. If you have GPS for your project, I'm just going to hit cancel here so you can see there's an import data option. And you see these are GPS GIS files. Select your files and they'll show up here. If you have an account, I think there's more options, but this is what it is, everyone can use just on their online mapper. The North Country Trail is visible in some areas here, but not all. You'll see the roadwalk little section here is missing. And I'm not sure this is all updated, so you may not actually see the North Country Trail in some areas. Same with Google Maps. I think there's some trailheads on Google Maps and things like that, the Google Earth. But may not all be visible, so that could make things a little bit harder if you use the center line for trying to estimate where you are. The waypoint tool, which I talked about earlier, again, might be good for things like a campsite or a parking area that you might want to denote. There's also the area tool if there's just perhaps a general area that you want to show, or a polygon kind of area. Double clicking when completed. You can also delete points if you want to kind of redo. It's not allowing me. There we go. So that deleted and is allowing me to redo it. So say, sure. So that is using the Gaia mapper. All right, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint to show you some of the links to these. All right, so again, I talked about the link to download Adobe Acrobat Reader for free. And then, of course, you all know the NCTA online map link, Google Earth, earth.google.com/web. And then Gaia, GAIA, GPS.com/map. And that has all of these options on it to play around with. So those were some of the options for creating maps on desktop. Perhaps you prefer to use your phone. Since I'm on desktop, I can't show the examples like I did with the online desktop maps, but I'm going to briefly talk through them so you know some of the mobile options. With the NCTA's map, you would again use the measure and distance tool if you're looking at it on your phone. But instead of clicking with the mouse, you're just going to click the route with your finger on the phone screen. So you can then screenshot that route that you created, save it, or upload onto the form. On Google Earth, there is not an option on the mobile app to draw a route, but instead you could use the measure tool and you would use your fingerprint to move the map around until the directional point is where you want it to be, and you can click add point, and you can keep adding points that connect to each other until you're done. Again, you can screenshot and save the route you created. I think this one's a little bit complicated because instead of being able to click with your finger, you have to move the map around to where the point is, but it is an option. The Avenza app is something that I have seen being uploaded into the Trail Project form sometimes. You're all probably familiar with the Avenza app way more than I am, so you might know more about this than I do. But I like the Avenza maps because you can make an estimated route while you're out in the field. If you click record GPS tracks and then start tracking, the app will create a route of where you walk. You can hit pause if you need to take a break or stop tracking when done. It will be saved as a map feature in your account that you can use as your estimated map for your project. I know we're reverting to use Guthook. However, I'm not familiar with Guthook. I tried to explore the app in the Guthook Maps a bit, but I could not figure out if there was a way to make tracks or to draw estimated routes within Guthook. If anyone knows how, let me know. I'd be interested to learn if it has that capability. Okay, so now you have your map and you want to upload it into the Trail Project form. So there's really 3 main steps to uploading the map. I have the 3 steps listed out on this slide, but I think it'll be better if I show you. So I'm going to go to the Trail Project form to show you a visual. Let me go to the Trail Project form. All right, so we're gonna scroll down. This is all the same as last year. And the upload a map section is also the same as last year. So you can upload a map here where it says choose file. The accepted file types are here: JPEG, PDF, PNG, so image files are accepted. The max file size. The max file size is pretty large, so it's unlikely that whatever you make is going to be too big for upload because it allows a pretty large file size. You would click choose file, and then you would search for that file in your desktop or mobile files. So I'm going to upload the Adobe map I already created. It's on my desktop, so just Adobe Project Map Trail Project Form and click open. Once I do that, I should see my file name. I do, right next to the choose file button. So Adobe Project Map Trail Project Form.pdf. After that, there's no more to be done here. Your map is now on the Trail Project form. And once I finish filling out the rest of the form, as long as this file name is visible here, and I click submit, it's going to upload with the form when I click submit. So sometimes when you click submit, this is why it might take a while until you see the success screen because it's uploading that map file. If you accidentally click the wrong file, that's fine. You would just have to repeat the steps. So choose file, choose the file again, open, and then the new file name should appear here. There's also an option up here, the NCTA's online map, to share a link view from the NCTA map. You would navigate to your project location in the North Country Trail map and click share current map extent. And then you can copy and paste that link into the form. So here we have the share button with the 3 arrows. And check off share current map view, map link. I can copy that. So, oops, copy. And then back to my trail project form, paste. All right, and this way you can open up right to where your project location is. So that is how to upload the map. All right, we're getting to the end here. Just want to talk about, the link to the Trail Project form, open now. So now we're going to talk about some dates and timelines that will be relevant in the coming months regarding the compliance process. Right now you're gathering information, or you hopefully already have gathered information for what you want to submit via the Trail Project form, including projects that may be years from implementation. Again, in most cases, your chapter does not have to resubmit any projects. So mostly you're submitting new plan projects or those that weren't submitted in the previous years, but there is that update option this year if you have significant updates or a communication tool if you'd like to use it. And again, feel free to reach out if you want to talk through submitting a project update. So starting on September 1st, all the way through October 1st, the Trail Project form is open and available to you to submit projects. Same web address you can find in the same location on the NCTA's website as the past 2 years. And so you can submit anytime during this month. After October 1st, the Trail Project form does close to submittals. And by at least late February, you'll start to receive notifications from me about the estimated timing of your project's compliance. Although there could very well be some communications with your chapter before that, depending on the projects you submit. And the timeline to complete any one compliance project is variable depending on many factors: NEPA level, significance of impacts, regulatory requirements, project location, all of that. The most basic compliance, again, could be completed in 2.5 weeks, as the past 2 years have shown, while the most complicated could take up to a year. Some proposed projects would have specific federally mandated timelines in their schedule. Consultations with other agencies would also increase the compliance timeline. Applicable permitting and surveys could occur before, during, or after NEPA. So there's just lots of factors that could affect a compliance timeline. The Park Service is working on multiple projects at the same time, and I intend to start compliance in your off season, while the Park Service will begin working on compliance for projects identified as higher preference first, because of variability of compliance timelines for projects of different complexities. Projects with a lower preferred order could be completed sooner than others just because of this variability in timelines. Compliance does not end with a signature on a document. I know I've said this in previous years. Compliance ends after a project is successfully implemented in accordance with all applicable laws and regulations, and when all promissory considerations are adhered to. So, for example, a signed compliance document may state that a permit or a survey will be completed before construction, or that certain protection measures will be implemented during construction to reduce impacts. So again, even if you receive an email from me stating that NPS has completed their compliance, please read through that email to review any potential follow-up actions that are part of the project's compliance. If you have any follow-up questions, there are opportunities for you to clarify your questions. This recording will be available for viewing, and you can rewatch the recordings from the previous years. Your chapter should have also received a email with the most updated trail project form tutorial this year. All I really had to do was add in that new and updated option at the beginning of the form that's new. You can contact your state RTCs for project questions, and you can contact me for any compliance or trail project form related questions. Our contact information is all here. And that is all I have for today. Feel free to reach out with any questions or clarifications. Thank you, and I'm really looking forward to our continued conversations as we move forward and as projects are submitted. So thank you. Bye.